It is week 7 of the 2022 college football season, and that means the college football season is at the halfway point. And I think it's very fitting that this week is the halfway point in the college football season. Because this week, I think there is a potential that the results of this week are going to be a big turning point in how the rest of the season plays out. As we have not 1, not 2, not 3, not 4, not 5, but 6 ranked matchups this week, and that includes 2 top 10 matchups, 3 top 15 matchups. In fact, I'll lay it out for you. We have 3 versus 6, 10 versus 5, 8 versus 13, 7 versus 20, 15 versus 18, and 16 versus 22. And I'm not going to go on much longer. I am just waiting to get to these picks, and I am super excited for this week, as this is, I think, the biggest week of the season yet. So without further ado, let's get to the Week 7 predictions. Kicking things off with a very intriguing battle in the Big Ten, Minnesota and number 24 Illinois. This is going to be classic Big Ten football, and I can't wait to see this one. We have the top 2 scoring defenses in the entire country in this matchup. And this is a battle of 2 teams that love to run the football, and they run the football well. Chase Brown for the Fighting Illini leading the country in rushing yards with 879. Minnesota running back Mo Ibrahim 17th in the country in rushing yards at 567. And this is going to be a game that you probably won't be a fan of if you're a fan of these high-scoring offenses, because it's going to be non-existent in this matchup. It's pretty much going to be the first one to probably 14-17 winning this game, as these are 2 teams that love to take their sweet time. Minnesota, first in the country in time of possession. Illinois is 8th. Minnesota is leading the country in third down offense and defense. So Minnesota, they're always extending drives. Minnesota's second passing defense, while Illinois is 9th. Minnesota, number 1 in total defense. Illinois is 3rd. So just by reading those numbers off, it's obvious we're in for a low-scoring game. But I'm going to go with the better offense in this matchup. I am picking Minnesota to win a low-scoring game. Both defenses are going to give it their all, but it's going to be one in the trenches. And I would rather place my bet on the better offense in this matchup, as Minnesota is 13th in total offense, while Illinois is 67th. So I'm picking the Golden Gophers to win 17-13 in what will be a classic Big Ten football matchup. Moving on to number 16 Mississippi State and number 22 Kentucky. For the Bulldogs, Will Rogers, 2,110 passing yards this season so far, which is leading the entire country. And he is the reason why Mississippi State is 5th in the country in passing offense. For Kentucky, their quarterback situation is in question right now. Quarterback Will Levis, who was and maybe even is still projected to be a first-round pick in April's NFL draft, his status is up in the air at this point. He did not play last week in South Carolina, and Kentucky suffered their second consecutive loss of the season. But one thing that is going for Kentucky, in fact, 2 things. Kentucky is 16th in passing defense. They have a pretty good pass defense. And Kentucky is looking towards their running game. They're looking at Chris Rodriguez Jr. and Kavosi Smoke to move the ball efficiently to keep Will Rogers and the Bulldogs offense on the sidelines. But I have 2 different picks here. I think Mississippi State wins this game either way. As Mississippi State, they have picked up confidence in these last couple of weeks. with 2 consecutive dominant wins against pretty quality SEC competition against Texas A&M and Arkansas. Without Will Levis, I think the Bulldogs win 35-17. But with Will Levis in the game, if he plays, I think Mississippi State wins 35-31. So I think Will Levis won't be the difference in the game. I still think Mississippi State wins either way, but I think it's going to be a lot closer if Will Levis plays. So either way, the Bulldogs win. They'll pick up another quality win. Number 15, NC State, and number 18, Syracuse. And I want to get this out of the way quickly. I am leaning towards Syracuse in this matchup. And why am I leaning towards Syracuse? Well, there are a few reasons. A laundry list of reasons. NC State just narrowly escaped against Florida State last week. Now, don't get me wrong. I find Florida State a very underrated football team. But add into the equation that Wolfpack quarterback Devin Leary, his status for this game is unknown. There's been no insight given on his status for Saturday. He's considered day-to-day. Syracuse is coming off of a bye week. And a couple big reasons why Syracuse is undefeated right now. Running back Sean Tucker, who I find to be a top 3 running back in all of college football. I think he is a running back that doesn't really get talked about that much. In fact, the reason why he doesn't get talked about is because he plays for Syracuse. If he was on Ohio State or Alabama or Texas or one of the big-time programs, everybody would be saying, put Sean Tucker in the Heisman conversation. They would have done it last year, as he was towards the top in rushing yards last year. And Syracuse, they win on first down. They are 4th in the country in first down defense. So, with all this information, if Devin Leary doesn't play in this game, I am picking Syracuse. But if he does, I'm going to pick NC State to win. Because I think Devin Leary can make a huge difference in this matchup. So, depending on if Devin Leary suits up and plays or not, that's how my pick is going to go. I am back and forth, but I'm leaning towards Syracuse right now. But that could change, and in fact, it will change if Devin Leary does take the field on Saturday. Number 7, USC, and number 20, Utah. Both of these teams are in the top 15 in scoring offense. Utah is 14th. USC is 15th. Trojan quarterback Caleb Williams has played clean football all season long, only throwing 1 interception this season so far. Utah quarterback Cameron Rising, also underrated. He is the big reason why Utah football is where it's at right now. And that is not in a bad way whatsoever. Even though Utah had a pretty excruciating loss last week, it's nothing to hang their heads about. Pasadena is still on the table for the Utes. The Pac-12 is that competitive this season. So Utah may not be going to the College Football Playoff this season. But at this point, they can play spoiler. They can spoil USC's chances of going to the College Football Playoff. Because even though the Pac-12 is fairly competitive this season, I think one USC loss, depending on how the rest of the season plays out, it could leave USC out of it as a team on the outside looking in. So, knowing that Pasadena and the Pac-12 championship still on the table for the Utes, I think the Utes are going to give it their all in this one, but I just can't really pick against USC at this point. And I have been thinking for a couple weeks now that USC is due for a loss. But even though I can really see them losing this week, I just don't see them doing that. I just think that USC is going to once again take advantage of their transfer portal acquisitions in Jordan Addison, Caleb Williams, and Travis Dye. As let's also acknowledge the USC defense. They're leading the country in team sacks, and they have the best turnover margin in the entire country. So, with the high scoring offense and the best turnover margin in the entire country, for Utah to win this game, and even though Utah is the favorite in this one, for them to pull off the quote-unquote upset, that's play a perfect game. And I want to see how they come out after last week's excruciating loss to UCLA. But I am picking the Trojans in this matchup. Moving on to number 8 Oklahoma State and number 13 TCU. And what a barn burner this is going to be. This is going to be fun and exciting from start to finish. This game has the 3rd and 4th ranked scoring offenses in the entire country. TCU is 3rd, Oklahoma State is 4th. And I just cannot wait for this one. This is going to be probably the first one to score 45 wins. And both these teams, they know how to score points. They can score them in a hurry. But I'm just going to go with the team that I feel like has the better defense. And the one that I feel like is the most disciplined. And that is Oklahoma State. Oklahoma State, they have the 4th fewest amount of penalties in the entire country. So they don't make silly mistakes. And you got to give credit to what Sonny Dykes has done with TCU so far this season. But I am questioning it a little bit. They did dominate Oklahoma, but Oklahoma has given up 145 points in their last 3 games combined. So I think Oklahoma State's defense is a little better than TCU's. I think they're the more disciplined team. And I'm just going to go with the Cowboys in a shootout. This is going to be along the lines of 45, 48, or 50 to 47. First 1 to 45 wins, and I think that's going to be Oklahoma State. I love the quarterbacks in this matchup, Spencer Sanders and Max Duggan. But Cowboys win, but it's going to be maybe the most exciting game of the week. Moving on to our first of 2 top 10 matchups to wrap up the picks this week. Number 10 Penn State and number 5 Michigan. Penn State is 13th in the nation in scoring defense, only giving up an average of 14.8 points per game. Michigan is 5th in scoring defense, only giving up an average of 11.3 points per game. Michigan is 7th in scoring offense, averaging 43 points per game. But I do have to acknowledge that Penn State is going to be the toughest team that Michigan has faced so far this season. And a big reason why Michigan is dominating, despite them having a couple of slow starts this season, against Maryland, against Indiana last week, Blake Corum, 3rd in the nation in rushing yards, with 735. But Penn State is 5th in the nation in run defense, only giving up an average of 79.5 rushing yards per game. And I talked in the beginning of the season that Penn State was still going to have one of the best defenses in college football, and that their defense should be better than it was last year with defensive coordinator Manny Diaz. And so far, that has been the case. Although you can argue that Penn State got a little lucky against Purdue, this Penn State team is undefeated for a reason. And I am going to go with the upset here. I think that Penn State goes on the road to the Big House in front of 100,000 plus and pulls off the stunner. I just think that this is going to be Sean Clifford's big moment, as I feel like Sean Clifford is yet to have that big moment in his career at Penn State, and I think Saturday afternoon is going to be it. and the Nittany Lions upset Michigan, and that's going to be a big turning point in the college football season if they indeed pull off the upset, which I think they do, behind their defense. And I think Sean Clifford is going to make some plays when it matters. Wrapping things up with the game of the week, number 3 Alabama and number 6 Tennessee. And this game features 2 top 5 scoring offenses. Alabama is 5th, averaging 44.3 points per game, while Tennessee is 2nd, averaging 46.8 points per game. And there are some question marks as far as the status of star players on both sides. For Tennessee, will Cedric Tillman be back this week, as Cedric Tillman has missed the last few weeks due to injury? For the Crimson Tide, will reigning Heisman Trophy winner Bryce Young be back this week? He did not play in the game last week against A&M. Backup quarterback Jalen Milroe did just enough in that game to give Alabama the win as they fought off a late Texas A&M rally. The second week in a row, the number 1 team has had to fight off the upset. Now, no matter who the quarterback is, whether it's Bryce Young or Jalen Milroe, something to keep in mind, Tennessee is 128th in passing defense. And for Tennessee to win this game, there is the blueprint to beating Alabama, and it must be followed to a T. And parts of it got revealed by A&M last week. And I'll essentially reveal the entire blueprint. 1, you have to play a perfect game of football, and Tennessee has the guy at quarterback that can get you a perfect football game in Hendon Hooker. He has thrown 0 interceptions this season, and he is one of 3 starting quarterbacks in the FBS to do that. They need to win the turnover margin. Alabama is 115th in turnover margin, which is not something you would expect with a Nick Saban coached Alabama team. And for Tennessee to win this game, they have to play outside of their comfort zone. And as crazy as that sounds, they have to. And what I mean by that, Tennessee is 125th in the country in time of possession. So they need to take long drives, extended drives. Keep the Alabama offense on the sidelines. Keep them cold. Don't let them get hot. Alabama is 8th in run defense, while Tennessee is 11th. So the running game is going to be a huge factor in this game as well. Jahmyr Gibbs, 8.3 yards per carry on average, which is leading the country. And Hendon Hooker has shown that he is establishing himself as one of the best quarterbacks in college football, as he can beat you in the air or on the ground. But the way I see this game, we know that Alabama played terrible last week. We know they had a bad game. And what typically happens when Alabama plays a bad game but still gets the win, or even if they lose, the next game they come out and dominate from start to finish. But depending on who starts at quarterback, if it's Bryce Young, I see Alabama dominating. But if it's not, if they have to suit up Jalen Milroe once again, I like Tennessee's chances to pull off the upset. I'm not saying that they will, but I like their chances. You're throwing in a backup quarterback in Jalen Milroe into a hostile environment. He is yet to face that kind of harassment. As game day will be in town, the fans at Neyland Stadium will be hyped from start to finish. They're going to be shouting and screaming from the opening kickoff to the end. And I think that's a big reason why Bryce Young lost to A&M last year and why Alabama lost to A&M last year was because Bryce Young had not faced that kind of harassment as a starting quarterback at that point. And Jalen Milroe is in the same scenario if he is the one that has to start. if Bryce Young is the starting quarterback on Saturday, if he plays, I think Alabama wins, but I don't think they necessarily dominate. I think it'd be in the neighborhood of 10 to 14 points. I can't see Alabama winning by more than 17. But if it's Jalen Milroe, I think there is a chance for Tennessee. But how much of a chance is it? Because if I had to guess, all week long, Alabama is going to use Jalen Milroe in practice a lot, as he is going to be the practice quarterback for the Alabama defense to take on Hendon Hooker. But either way, I think Alabama wins. But I would not be surprised if Tennessee pull off the upset if Bryce Young is out. But I think Alabama wins either way. The question is by how much. And that will do it for the Week 7 college football predictions. Like, share, comment, and subscribe. And until next time, have a wonderful day and enjoy the college football this Saturday, as this is going to be an exciting week. As I said in the beginning, possibly the turning point of the entire season.